want to be clear about where I'm at on this first before we get really into it. Look, I was not one of the ones, if I'm not mistaken, like in the stupid video that was shown, as well as some of the this article that this person wrote. But you know that it's one of my, like, a lot of people that you guys associate with me were a part of this. Now I take exception to that, not just because they are my bros, but a lot of it is in the sense that one thing that I cannot stand when people do it, and if you watched even when we had that kind of, I don't want to say a fallout, but those few days where I was going back and forth with Dipsticks and we had that special stream, it's the same thing. One thing that really I just have it's not even a low tolerance, I have no tolerance for, is to suggest that people are what they are not, in the sense that you have to claim that they said something, did something that they didn't, and it's so egregious. Now, of course, yes, you predict stuff, you allude to certain things. That's to be expected. But when you tie people to something so egregious that is like unanimously and universally seen as a bad thing, that I take issue with. I absolutely take issue with. So I'm going to show you guys what happened out of this, and I kind of give you, I'm going to take my time with this, and we'll watch this a little bit, and we'll look at some of the stupid stuff in this article, because I want to make an example of this absolute clown. So this guy is aided by an analysis of over 1 million tweets, blah, blah, blah. This is the full story of, and this is how he says it, or how Rewriting Ripley podcast, he, she, they, whatever, say it. This is the full story of alt-right radicalization in the Star Wars fandom. So you operating right there on a, like, just making stuff up, okay? From designated white supremacist hate groups, Hail Mary, that's what they're throwing right there. This is how hate attacked the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Now, watching some of this video, check this out.
The algorithm is actually trying to find a few rabbit holes that are very powerful and try to find which rabbit hole is the closest to your interest.
So you can see, obviously,
for me,
there's Ryan.
Started diving hard into some of these people's YouTube videos, and you kind of get hooked. Maybe they'll stop pushing this feminist agenda that is driven
so you can tell. I'm not gonna show the whole shit because every time I watch it, I get upset. And you can see there's Gary here. There's Jeremy, and they're trying to paint it. There's Drunk 3PO. They're trying to paint a lot of my bros. You know what I mean? Geeks and Gamers family, and members of the, you know, who you would deem as the Fender Menace, trying to paint them as something, and basically saying that their content then changes and kind of is this rabbit hole, or rather turning people into this alt-right, like white supremacist nonsense. Okay, so this is my problem,
because he thought they could be radicalized,
being invaded,
and this is, I'm not even gonna listen. I'm not really. This is my problem with it. Before we get into the article, it's the conflation, right? The conflation is that, okay, this is how they do, because they've done this with me. People have done this with me many times. It's okay. You were critical of something. I want to make it seem as if not only your criticism is illegitimate, what you're saying is wrong, but I also know that I can do that by tying you to something that people generally deem as bad. So what happens? They try to name you, or rather identify you as being alt-right, or at least associated with it, albeit even mildly, or white supremacists. They can't just do that just to, you know, go about what you say. No. They have to set the scene. So what'll happen is they'll pick and choose. They'll grab sound bites. They'll grab certain things in or out of context. But the idea is, as you can see, going from that to like Milo Yiannopoulos and Breitbart, like doing that sort of stuff is what I'm talking about, right? It's like that has nothing to do with what you were showing, but they don't care about that. The idea is to conflate all of these people that have a role sort of in what they deem as this hating, attacking like Star Wars fandom and what have you. When if you've watched those guys' videos, be it in Neurotic or Ryan or anybody at the Geeks and Game, they're showing everybody. They showed again, Jeremy, I think Mahler was shown in here as well. Let me read this. There's a lot of them that were shown. The people that you guys probably watch, and associated with me because again I've appeared on stream with a lot of these guys. These guys that I consider in a lot of cases my bros and my colleagues, especially folks over there at the on the Geeks and Gamers team. Those guys have been nothing but awesome, certainly to me. So, and they've backed in the event that I've ever had my share of people bombard me with stupid stuff. They've always had me, and I'm gonna get them back. I said right here, anybody to the right of Bernie Sanders is all right to y'all crackheaded asses, and that's exactly true. So the article itself is obviously trying to put all of these people in a similar pool, right? And that's the thing that I take issue with. Breitbart, Ben Shapiro, yada, yada, yada. And we know that The Last Jedi was something that was a lot of folks had issue with. And I'm not going to sit here and argue that because I'm not a Star Wars guy. Never have been. Despite me being with Phantom Menace bros, like that's like not my thing. I speak about it loosely because I'm a normie in that. My things are comics and not Star Wars ones, right? And which is it's funny how they kind of or what this person is doing is trying to paint it as if, okay, these are generally white people that are taking these issues with it, as if there's been no black creators and black creators that are in the freaking Phantom Menace. Just some guys of the world that have taken issue with the route that some of the Star Wars has been going. And we know that this recent trilogy has been very, very polarizing. But here you go. It's, as you see in some of these titles, and if you want to go read this, fine. But to sit up here and try to tie, Bannons of the world, Steve Bannons of the world, and then tie those to, here we go, right here, EVS, The Quartering, Tim Pool, Geeks and Gamers. These are guys that all of these I've appeared on his, obviously, I've been on his streams of EVS many times. EVS has been, of course, over at my, on my show, on For Cannon's Sake. Tim Pool, what was that, 2 months ago? We were over on his stuff. Geeks and Gamers team, which they just showed Jeremy, though Geeks and Gamers is part of a larger team, and of course they have The Quartering. And so here we go, spread hate against Lucasfilms, blah, blah, blah. Because God forbid that Lucasfilm put out a bunch of dog crap and people actually take issue with it, right? And this is a bunch of it's a walls of text. And if you want to go read it, by all means do it. But the idea is that everybody that criticized this is due to hating women, due to white supremacy, due to hating colored folk or people of color, whatever they want to call them. And it's like the fact that you have to reach, like even that little chart that we had just showed you, for example, that this person showed right here is like being disingenuous. But they don't care about that. They don't even, the term alt-right means nothing, to them or coming from them. It's just a term that they can use because they think of that as a bad thing that people don't generally want to be associated with. So what they will do is associate people with that. So it's like, hey, you're leading people to this. And it's like somebody's got Dave Rubin, right? Like, all signs just lead to Steve Bannon. You watch EVS talk about the DC Comics being so bad, and then I guess all signs point towards Steve Bannon. It's like, dude, what? But see, this is, I got reiterated time and time again. My problem with this isn't that you disagree with people that are generally my allies. That's not the issue. You can disagree all day long. And again, they'll find isolated, like maybe actual acts of racism or something like that. And they'll then try to associate that with, like, again, the people that I just named. Hey, this actor or actress got attacked, despite like guys like Jeremy who have been condemning certain things. They don't care about that. The idea is to paint you as a bad person, to paint your criticism in a bad light, to basically delegitimize it. Because God forbid that people take issue with The Last Jedi or any of these dog crap that they had put out. That was very polarizing to a lot of people within this community. But my issue continues to be with that is the same thing, that the way that it always is. It's like, why do you have to reach in order to try to paint or disagree with someone? Why can't it not be simply, all right, you don't like that Ryan said that there's this hyper feminist bull crap going on with, and half the times y'all brag about that, the Star Wars guys. Anyway, why can't you just disagree? That's not what you do, though, right? That's not what you do. Instead, it's, well, you disagree and you are hateful and racist and sexist and homophobic and you are then to be conflated with white supremacy. So they'll go these uber great lengths to try to paint someone in a bad light, to associate them with racism, white supremacy, sexism, and all sorts of things. And that sucks, because what happens is now you have, if you even look at the comments of that post, right, you have people that are sitting here like acting as if that is actually the real, that's the real case. Like, that's the world. Oh my God, people type in Star Wars in YouTube and I hate that they see Jeremy's video. That means Jeremy's doing something right. You can be mad at it all day long, but you don't have, and this is what these guys don't understand. And the reason why it's so familiar with it, it's not just because those are my bros. I get the same attacks just on the Marvel and the DC side of things. It's that, God forbid we have an issue, right, with what's going on, and then it's like you hate this. You hate these types of people, like who hyper diversity efforts, which, why actually learn what the actual argument is? I don't know anybody, and certainly none of those, that would ever have a problem with a black character or female character, or somehow you can't even not like imagine that. Like, imagine liking Star Wars and thinking there's something wrong with female characters. These guys are idiots, right? Even I know that, but that's not the argument. It's that maybe in this case you beat some audience over the head with it, and because you're so worried about that narrative, your hiring practices are terrible. Right? And it manifests itself in ways that make for bad art. They'll never accept that as a possibility. It's, you criticize that aspect and therefore you're racist, therefore you hate black people, therefore you're a white supremacist. It's a bad, disingenuous argument that, I gotta watch my words here. I don't think people understand how disrespectful that is. I think they think it's funny. I'm sorry that it's blurring out and trying to focus on my hands. But I don't think they understand how disrespectful that is. You remember I had that debate with that one group of dipsticks, kind of similar thing. Hey, you cultivate this, your audience that. And I told them, I had a long little deal of that by the end of the debate, and I was like, you need to understand that you trying to tie people to something as egregious as like Nazis or white supremacists is a problem. That shit's not funny. Like, that shit is disrespectful, but to a degree that if we applied that in another, like, it's only appropriate because of the enemy. You know, you want that person to be painted in that bad light, which is fine. Disrespectful, nonetheless, but people get punched in the mouth for less. Now, I'm not saying anybody should be punching anybody in the mouth for using aggression on people. What I'm saying is, and I'm trying to emphasize, is how disrespectful that is to tie people to folks that have done objectively bad, aggressive things. That shit's not funny. And the fact that y'all are so itching to do that is a problem. It's not funny. So to the point to where you're slandering people, libel, just because they are analyzing it in a way that you can't possibly see. Look, man, we are consumers, but we're not consumers in the sense that we have to sit there and value, or rather like, everything that these companies pump out, especially with long-standing brands like the Star Wars fandom or Star Wars brand. We don't have to accept that. And just because Jeremy or myself or Ryan does a video pointing out, doesn't matter if it's about Star Wars, it's Marvel or DC, pointing out the bull crap, whether it be with social justice activism, that you use the platform that this fandom has to stand on that and sit there lecturing everybody, and we see it manifest itself in bad art and we call it out, does not mean that you get to just try to tie people to like white supremacists. I cannot stress enough, that shit isn't fucking funny, man. It's not funny. It's not. Like, these people think that shit's okay, where they make these libelous, slanderous claims trying to tie people to bad people, right? So bad. Like, I gotta paint you as all right because they have no fucking argument. They don't have anything that they can say. It doesn't exist. There's nothing, they can't actually address the point it is that you're saying. So what do they say? It's the same thing that they do with my videos, right? It's, well, this person has a problem with female characters. This person has a problem with black women being in certain roles or being in lead roles. Like, no, you dumbass. Like, that's not the argument. Nobody fucking made that argument. And if you took 3 seconds to actually try to listen to what people were saying, you don't end up trying to reach like that. But that shit's disrespectful, bro. That shit's not, it's not cool. It's not cool to be tying people to that type of shit just because you don't like what it is they say. If they don't like The Last Jedi, they think it was dog shit. It is what it is. Argue against the actual point, not trying to tie these people to what you deem as and what they would deem as egregious, alt-right or white supremacy, which is why we say those terms right now don't mean anything. They don't mean anything. They don't mean anything, man. This is why I said in that comment section, I said, or in responding to the tweet, anybody to the right of Bernie Sanders is all right to y'all. They call me all right. It doesn't mean anything coming from them. It's just not them. And so it was a boogeyman. I did a video. I want y'all can go check the receipt. Remember when they first started talking about like alt-right? This was back to the Richard Spencer days when he was standing in front of 30 people and they all of a sudden act like he was just like this uber prominent influencer, and when nobody knew what he was until the media started covering 30 people in Alabama fucking talking about shit. Like, I did a video back in like 2015, 2016, and I said that I think the title of it is like the alt-right boogeyman. And it was like I was watching this in real time, people try to talk this enemy up because they needed a dragon to slay. So they're trying to talk this enemy up. And slowly as they talk the enemy up, who was considered that grew larger and larger and larger to the point to where they can do as much as they can to loosely, just like what this article does, to loosely associate people that have nothing to do with that with folks that maybe are actual racists, like actual racists, and have no problem telling you that. Though that's not what these other people are. But God forbid they be honest. That shit's unacceptable, man. Like, and I'm not saying that people should be going to attack them or going to even, well, people do get sued for less, but I ain't even talking about getting involved with the courts. I want people, see, this is why I'm in the business of addressing people directly. You know what I mean? Like addressing folks directly. Like I'm the type to, I try to make myself reasonably available to talk with people that have issues with me because I want the shit on the record that you're being a fucking dumbass. Right? But that energy when you do stuff like that, I hope you get approached in the sense that you have to run into like a Jeremy or a Ryan. Not to say that y'all gonna fist fight or something like that. That's not what I'm saying. But I want you to look someone in the eye and tell and associate them with that. And I know you couldn't do it. I know you couldn't fucking do it. You couldn't do it. You couldn't possibly do it. You could do it behind a fucking computer screen by any means, but you could not do that. You could not be that disrespectful. And I don't think these people understand how disrespectful that is. Like, y'all gotta stop that, man. Y'all gotta stop that. Like, I get that we might disagree. You don't even gotta like each other. But when we get to the point to where, like, damn, we gotta sit here and try to paint everybody as like some sort of supremacist, is like, dude, like, what are you doing, man? Aside from just trying to make enemies out of people. Now, it's getting ratioed just as it should. It's getting ratioed just as what it should be getting ratioed in that regards. But these motherfuckers need to understand that shit ain't like that. That ain't cool, bro. It's not cool by any means, and it needs to stop. Right? So I'm pulling up. Like, that's the one I'm in the business of. Like, when at some point y'all decide to stop wearing diapers on your face all the time, which I know y'all get mad at me for saying that. That'll get me called a white supremacist. Wearing diapers on your face all the time, decide to get out. When we start going to events, if I know people like that and have said things like that are at the event that I'm at, I am going right up to you. I'm one of the and people that know me personally, you understand. I am one of the most confrontational people that you'll ever meet. And I'm confrontational. That doesn't mean that when I say confrontational, understand I'm meaning about literal definition. Meaning that I'm not the one to shy away and be like, oh, that guy that we've been going back and forth with is over there. I'm going to act like I don't see him. Nope. I'm like, oh, word up. Hey, so yeah, we had this discussion here on the internet or an email or something like that. Let's see if we can kind of come to some sort of consensus on what the problem is and actually address it. You'd be surprised how people act way differently than they do on the internet in comparison to how they act in real life. It's the only, I don't want to say the only, but it's one of the negative things that came from the internet. Is that it got a bunch of people being able to get away with just being just disrespectful to the point to where you're tying people to the worst of the absolute worst. And even if it's not the worst, it's like something that they shouldn't be tied to because they don't even agree with that. But because you're so fixated on trying to paint someone in a bad light, you lump them all together because, God forbid, someone don't like The Last Jedi or pointed out that it may have some some of the hiring practices or something like that, hyper feminism efforts have made for bad work, bad art, bad television, bad movies, right? You can do that without being against black people being in roles or something. I don't know how many times I have to say, but this is because they're literal NPCs, and this is why we call them NPCs, right? When you have people, for example, in my mentions, in my, responding to me saying, well, you make all these videos talking about how diversity is a joke and all this. I was like, yeah, I do. Absolutely. But they conflate that with that meaning that I have a problem with like black people being in roles. It's because they don't know how to make honest arguments. So what do? They reach. They do what this dude just did, and God forbid people who dislike The Last Jedi. That shit is a problem, but it's not funny though. I just want to be clear that that's not funny. That's not funny. And the fact that people do think that stuff is okay, it's dangerous nonetheless. But the fact that people think that is okay is a problem. So I'm always get my bros back because they've gotten mine. Geeks and Gamers team has been. And the rest of even the Phantom Menace folks that aren't even Geeks and Gamers are part of that particular team have done nothing but they have again, the fact that they just pinned Geeks and Gamers on Jeremy like there isn't all these other people that are that are part of that crew. It's like, dude, people are allowed to disagree. And it doesn't make them racist, but that goes to show that they think it's a shield. And that's why I think a lot of these, and this is going on to another point, but that's why I think a lot of these people that are creating and in production with these movies and stuff, why they go the route that they go. and some of the hiring practice, the tokenization, because of just that. They get to say anybody that criticizes them, or calls them out on it. Well, they don't like women. They don't like black people. Though that isn't an argument. I do find it. I'm gonna end on this note. It's funny because a lot of these people have done a lot of great things. Definitely when you consider Drunk 3PO and the fan and even Phantom Menace Geeks and Gamers team, stuff they do with Zack doing with that Zack Snyder, Suicide, sort of raising all of this money. Think they got mentioned in a sense to where that was the highlight, that was the emphasis. Think they went to actually go find the people that are part of the Phantom Menace that are not white, that generally echo the same sentiment, that are women? Of course not. Because that doesn't fit a narrative that they're trying to paint. And that's my problem, is that they have to be disingenuous. They have to be dishonest because they want to present you as the evil of the absolute evil. And I can't mince for words. Those people are absolute assholes. That's about all I could say.